The sky above the alien world was crowded. Hundreds, no thousands, of ships hung in orbit, black silhouettes against the faint glow of the system's dying sun. War banners of every color drifted in the void, the combined might of half the known galaxy gathered in one place. It was a sight that should have broken the will of any sane enemy. But humanity had never been particularly good at being sane when the stakes were this high. The Armada's purpose was simple: to wait. To wait for the arrival of the force Earth would send to meet them. Every commander in that fleet had studied human history. They'd seen the way humans fought, reckless, stubborn, and devastating. They expected Earth to send an entire fleet in answer to this challenge. They expected formations bristling with weapons, carriers filled with fighters, swarms of drones. The galaxy was prepared for an equal fight. But when the human response came, it was just one ship. Not a battleship. Not a dreadnought. Just a single dark figure cutting silently through the void. The alien commanders laughed at first. They thought it was arrogance. Or desperation. Perhaps even a bluff. Surely, somewhere behind it, a fleet was cloaked, waiting to reveal itself. But no other ships followed. No swarm of reinforcements appeared on their scanners. Just this lone vessel, approaching at a steady, deliberate pace, as though it had all the time in the universe. From the bridge of that human ship, the crew could see the Armada's formation glittering like a wall of teeth in the distance. Every one of them felt the weight of it pressing against their chest. The sensors kept scrolling line after line of contacts. Frigates, cruisers, capital ships, each one capable of reducing their vessel to dust in seconds. Still no one turned back. The captain stood in silence, his hands clasped behind his back. His crew didn't speak unless they had to. The only sounds were the quiet hum of the ship's systems and the occasional hiss of air through the vents. The tension was alive, an invisible force pressing in, squeezing tighter with every kilometer they closed. Somewhere deep in that alien armada, commanders debated what to do. Destroying the lone ship immediately would be easy. But some were curious. Some wanted to see what these humans were thinking. Why would they send one ship? Did it carry some superweapon? Was it meant to negotiate? Or was it bait? In the mess hall of the human ship, a young crew member sat with her fingers wrapped around a cup of tea gone cold. She kept staring at the bulkhead as if she could see through it, past the steel, past the vacuum, straight to the enemy fleet. She had family back on Earth. Most of the crew did. None of them said it aloud, but every one of them knew what failure meant. If they didn't succeed, those people might not be there by the time they returned, if they returned at all. The communications officer's console beeped once, sharp and cold. An incoming hail. The alien flagship's voice came through, dripping with mockery. One ship. Humanity insults us with this toy. The captain didn't answer right away. He simply stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the deck, and leaned slightly toward the microphone. His voice was calm, too calm. You called. We came. Silence on the other end. Then the alien replied, "We will give you one chance to surrender. Your planet will be spared if you kneel." The crew exchanged glances. No one said it, but they all knew Earth would never kneel. The captain's reply was almost a whisper, but it carried a weight that made every heart on the bridge thud harder. You've mistaken patience for weakness. That's a mistake you won't live to repeat. In the alien flagship, sensors picked up a change. The lone human ship's energy readings began to spike, just slightly, barely above idle. But the readings weren't matching any known weapons systems in their databases. The Armada's analysts frowned, sending out urgent data requests. Inside the human ship, the engineering bay glowed with a faint, pulsing light. A single experimental device sat in the center of the room, cables snaking into it from every direction. It was the reason only one ship had been sent. The reason the galaxy had no idea what was coming. And yet, it wasn't the weapon itself that gave the crew courage. It was the simple fact that they were human. And humans didn't measure victory in numbers. The captain turned his gaze to the forward viewport, where the alien fleet loomed ever larger. His voice, calm but unshakable, echoed across the ship. Steady. Let them wonder. Out there, beyond the glass, the galaxy's greatest armada waited. They had no idea that the ship approaching them carried not just technology, but the will of a species that refused to break. The alien commanders leaned forward in their chairs, watching as the distance closed. Their fleet could annihilate this lone vessel in seconds, yet something held them back. Curiosity, or perhaps a faint, unspoken fear. One of the human crew glanced at the captain. "They're scanning us again, sir?" "Let them," the captain said. "They'll find nothing they understand." The ship passed the halfway point between the Armada and the edge of the system. The tension was almost unbearable now. On Earth, millions were watching through encrypted channels, holding their breath, praying that the gamble would work. The alien voice returned over comms, harder now with the edge of frustration. "This is your final warning, human. Turn back or be destroyed." The captain allowed himself the faintest smile. "Funny. I was about to say the same to you." Somewhere in the engineering bay, the device gave a low, resonant hum. Lights along its surface flickered, then began to glow steadily as if awakening from a long sleep. The alien commanders gave the order to target the human ship. Thousands of weapons swiveled, locking on to the lone vessel. But just as the command to fire was about to be given, the human ship vanished from their sensors. Not cloaked. Not destroyed. Just gone. The alien fleet erupted in confusion, shouting over one another, trying to find the blip again. The scanners swept furiously through the void, but there was nothing. Then, without warning, the human ship reappeared, far closer than it had any right to be. Close enough that the alien flagship's shields shimmered in reaction to its proximity. In the human ship's bridge, every crew member sat rigid, eyes fixed forward. Their captain leaned closer to the comm, his voice a low growl that carried across the stars. "Now, you're in our range." Before the aliens could react, the device's hum rose to a deep, rolling roar. The lights inside the ship flickered. Power readings spiked into the red. And then, the story cuts here. Because what happened next changed the galaxy forever. The roar of the device was almost alive now, a deep vibration that settled into the bones of every crew member. On the bridge, no one moved. The captain stood motionless, his eyes locked on the alien flagship beyond the glass. The rest of the crew barely breathed, their hands frozen above consoles as if any sudden movement might break the fragile moment hanging in the air. No one in the Armada knew what the humans had brought. They only knew it was unlike anything they had seen before, and that alone was enough to make them hesitate. In war, hesitation was dangerous. But curiosity had a way of slipping through cracks in caution. Inside the ship's engineering bay, the chief engineer wiped sweat from his brow. The device wasn't just a weapon, it was a gamble. The scientists on Earth had warned them it wasn't fully tested, that in the wrong conditions it could just as easily destroy its own ship as it could the enemy. But there had been no time to wait for perfection. Humanity's enemies were massing now, and if this weapon could shift the balance, it had to be deployed. The crew had all volunteered for this mission, knowing the odds. Every one of them had been given a chance to step off the ship before departure. No one did. Maybe it was loyalty. Maybe it was stubbornness. Or maybe it was the simple truth that when humanity was threatened, they closed ranks. In the quiet moments before launch, each of them had been given a sealed letter, written by their families, by friends, by people who loved them. Some had read them. Others kept them sealed, afraid to carry those words into the fire. A few had slipped the envelopes into their lockers, saving them for after. There was an after. The captain's gaze never left the enemy fleet. He had fought in smaller battles before, skirmishes along the edges of human space. He had seen how other species fought, cold, calculated, convinced that war was just numbers and probability. But humanity had never fought that way. For humans, war was always personal. The communications officer's voice broke the silence. "Captain, incoming broadcast from Earth Command." The captain nodded. The voice that filled the bridge was crisp and steady, but there was an undercurrent of strain. "You are cleared to proceed. All civilian populations have been moved to shelters. The eyes of Earth are on you." The crew exchanged looks. That last sentence wasn't military code, it was a reminder. Every human, from the smallest colony to the heart of Earth itself, was watching them right now. Some watching with hope, others with fear. The captain's voice was calm. "Understood. Proceeding." The alien fleet still held position. From their vantage point, the human ship looked small, almost fragile, but the readings from their sensors had shifted from puzzling to alarming. They had studied humans for years. They knew humans were unpredictable. But this felt different. In one of the alien command chambers, a general paced in front of his tactical display. He had been one of the loudest voices urging the destruction of the human vessel the moment it appeared. Now, though, he found himself hesitating. His instincts, honed over decades of battle, whispered that something about this wasn't right. And if humans excelled at anything, it was making a fight not right for the other side. Back on the human ship, the device's hum began to settle into a rhythm. It was steady now, pulsing like a heartbeat. The chief engineer looked at the readings and gave a small nod to the captain. Everything was ready. And yet, the captain didn't give the order to fire. He waited. Every second stretched, each heartbeat amplified in the silence. Outside, the alien fleet's weapons still glowed, still locked on target, but the longer they waited, the more the balance shifted. The humans had shown no fear, no flinch, no retreat. That alone was enough to make the enemy uneasy. The young crew member from the mess hall earlier sat at her station, her fingers poised over the controls. She thought about the last night on Earth before launch, standing on a balcony overlooking the city lights, breathing in air that smelled like home. She had promised her younger brother she would come back. She wanted to keep that promise, but deep down she knew not everyone would return from this. The captain glanced at her. Just a flicker of eye contact, but it was enough to steady her. In the alien flagship, a commander finally gave the order. Fire. Thousands of weapon systems primed. Power surged into barrels and launch bays. But just as the first beams were about to streak toward the lone human ship, something impossible happened. The stars themselves seemed to shift. For the briefest moment, space bent around the human vessel. It wasn't a cloak. It wasn't a jump. It was as if the ship existed in two places at once, shimmering between realities. The alien weapons hesitated, automatic targeting systems struggling to lock on. The captain's voice cut through the hum of the device. They don't understand it. The chief engineer almost smiled. That's the point. Every calculation the alien fleet had made was wrong now. Their carefully plotted probabilities were useless against something they couldn't even name. They were planners, tacticians, strategists, but humans were gamblers, and gamblers knew how to win with the unexpected. The device pulsed again, brighter this time. The view outside the bridge flickered, black space, then streaks of light, then black again, as if reality itself were taking deep breaths. The crew gripped their stations. This was what it felt like to stand on the edge of a knife. And still the captain waited. He knew that the first move wasn't just about damage, it was about timing. The galaxy believed humanity was at a disadvantage because of its numbers. They didn't realize that humans had built their entire survival on being underestimated. From the corner of his eye, he saw the young crew member glance toward the viewport, her jaw tight, her hands trembling ever so slightly. She wasn't afraid of dying, not exactly. She was afraid of failing. The captain spoke quietly, but his words carried across the bridge. When they write about this day, they'll remember one thing: humanity came anyway. The alien fleet adjusted its formation. Massive ships began to drift forward, forming an attack wall. They were done waiting. This was their moment to crush humanity in one swift blow. But for every meter they moved closer, the hum inside the human ship deepened, the air seeming to thicken. The crew could feel the device pulling at them as if space itself was leaning in to listen. The captain finally straightened, his decision made. His hand hovered over the control that would unleash the device. The crew braced themselves. And then, just as his fingers touched the panel, the enemy fleet stopped. No one on the human ship spoke. The alien wall held position, their weapons still primed but unmoving. Something had shifted on their side. Orders were being shouted across their comm channels, and the formation was subtly breaking apart, ships drifting out of position. The communications officer frowned at her console. "Sir, we're picking up a signal. It's not from the flagship." The captain turned. "Then who is it from?" She hesitated, reading the data again. "It's coming from behind their fleet. Another ship. Smaller. Moving toward us." Every eye on the bridge shifted to the forward viewport. Beyond the wall of enemy warships, a single vessel was approaching, alone just like them. Its silhouette was unfamiliar, but its signal was clear. It wasn't one of theirs. And it wasn't one of the enemy's either. The captain's grip on the console tightened. The device continued to hum, ready to unleash its full power. But now there was a third player in the game. And whatever it was, it had just stepped into the middle of the galaxy's most dangerous standoff. The tension on the human ship was electric, a current running through every crew member like the charge in the air before a storm. The unexpected presence of that third ship had shattered every expectation. The Armada's war fleet, which had seemed so certain and immovable moments ago, now wavered like a giant caught off balance. Outside the viewport, the unknown vessel moved with an eerie calm, sliding past the towering warships as if they were nothing more than space debris. Its design was unlike anything the crew had ever seen, sleek, almost organic in its shape, with lights that pulsed softly, like a heartbeat echoing in the void. On the bridge, whispers broke out, barely audible over the hum of the device. Who are they? Are they friend or foe? Are they here to help, or to end this? The captain's eyes narrowed. He knew the galaxy was full of mysteries, but right now there was no room for doubt or hesitation. This new variable had changed everything, but he couldn't let it distract him. The weight of humanity's future rested on his shoulders. The alien Armada commanders barked orders. Their voices were sharp, desperate. They hadn't expected this. A sudden unknown presence in the middle of their strongest formation? It was a threat beyond their calculations, something that could unravel their strategy with a single move. The flagship's weapons system shifted focus, trying to track the new ship, but every scan came back inconclusive. The enemy grew restless, their confidence fading as their formations broke down further. Inside the human ship, the chief engineer's fingers danced over the controls, monitoring the device's power levels. It was holding steady, but the longer this standoff dragged on, the greater the risk that something could go wrong. Every moment was a gamble on a razor's edge. The young crew member who had clung to memories of home now gripped her console like a lifeline. She looked up, meeting the captain's gaze. There was fear there, but not just for themselves. For the people they'd left behind. For the families waiting, the lives counting on them to succeed. The captain broke the silence. We didn't come this far to back down now. Not with Earth watching. The communications officer's console beeped again, this time with a new incoming message. The voice was cold, mechanical, unfamiliar. It spoke in a language that seemed to ripple in the airwaves, foreign and alien, but somehow backslash. The ship's systems translated it instantly. This standoff serves no purpose. Step aside or face destruction. The new arrivals demand passage. A murmur spread across the bridge. The unknown ship wasn't just a passive observer, it was issuing demands. The captain's jaw tightened. Who are you to demand anything from humanity? No answer. Just silence, heavy and charged. The alien fleet shifted uneasily, their weapons now pointed not just at the human ship, but also at the newcomer. The airlock of diplomacy had slammed shut. The battlefield was set. The device inside the human ship pulsed louder, a warning and a promise. The crew could feel its energy flowing beneath their feet, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant rousing to life. Suddenly, alarms blared across the human ship, shields flickering, systems reporting unexpected interference. The unknown vessel was emitting some kind of pulse, subtle but powerful, designed to disrupt electronics. The battle was no longer just about firepower, it was about who could control the invisible currents of space itself. The young crew member's hands trembled as she adjusted her station to counter the interference. We're fighting on two fronts now, she said quietly. Not just the Armada, but whatever that ship is. The captain nodded, his voice steady but low. Stay focused. We're humanity's shield and sword. Outside, the alien fleet's weapons began to charge again. This time, faster and more desperate. The commanders knew their window was closing. If they didn't strike soon, whatever strange force the unknown ship brought could tip the balance irreversibly. The human ship's device reached full power. Lights inside the engineering bay bathed the room in a cold, blue glow. The crew felt it vibrating beneath their feet, a living force ready to unleash chaos. The captain gave the command every soul on board had been waiting for. Prepare to fire. But just as the weapon primed, the unknown ship made its move. It surged forward at impossible speed, weaving through the Armada's lines, cutting closer to the human vessel. Its intentions were unclear, friend, foe, or something else, but the message was undeniable. This battle was no longer just about survival. The alien fleet scrambled, sending waves of fighters and missile salvos toward the newcomer. Explosions lit the void, and the crackle of energy weapons filled the airwaves. Inside the human ship, the crew held their breath. The captain's eyes never left the unfolding chaos outside. He thought of Earth, of the millions watching, hoping. He thought of the families, the children, the friends who believed humanity could stand against impossible odds. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a test of spirit, of heart. And now, with the Armada closing in, the unknown ship charging, and the device humming like a living thing beneath them, everything was about to change. The captain's voice cut through the tension, steady and unwavering. Hold your positions. Brace for impact. The story waits here, hanging in the balance. The fate of humanity, the secret of the device, and the true nature of the mysterious ship all converging on the edge of disaster. What happens next will echo across the stars, and no one, not even the captain, knows how this story will end. Just as the crew braced for the collision of worlds, the unexpected happened. The unknown ship paused. It didn't keep charging forward as everyone expected. Instead, it emitted a pulse, sharp, deliberate, a signal that rippled through the void and, inexplicably, through the human ship's own systems. The device's humming shifted, faltered, as if reacting to a command it didn't recognize. The chief engineer's fingers flew over his console, struggling to stabilize the power flow. "Captain," he said, voice tight, "this pulse, it's disrupting the device. It's not just interference anymore. It's controlling it." The captain's heart pounded in his chest. His eyes locked on the unknown ship's silhouette, now drifting closer, not as an attacker but as a puppet master. "We're not alone in this fight," the communications officer whispered, her voice barely audible. "That ship, it's not here to help us. It's here to control us." Across the alien armada, confusion rippled through their ranks. Their confidence had cracked once already, but this new twist shattered it completely. Their sensors, once focused on the lone human vessel, now scrambled to understand the shadow looming behind it, the true threat that had been hidden in plain sight. The captain clenched his fists. This wasn't just a standoff anymore. It was a trap. Inside the human ship, the crew scrambled to regain control of the device. Alarms screamed, warning lights flashing red. The experimental weapon, their last hope, was turning against them, driven by an unknown force. The young crew member swallowed hard, her eyes wide with fear and determination. If that ship can manipulate the device, what else can it do? Are we just puppets in someone else's game? The captain's voice was firm, steady even in the chaos. "No. We're human. We don't give up. Not now. Not ever." But even as he spoke, the device's power fluctuated wildly. Energy surged through the ship's core, and the walls seemed to hum with a dangerous intensity. The unknown vessel sent another pulse, sharper this time, and the human ship's shields flickered under the strain. The Armada took the moment to strike. Hundreds of weapons fired, beams of light and streams of plasma slicing through space toward the human vessel. Explosions rocked the hull. The bridge shook violently. The crew held on, their faces pale but unyielding. The captain shouted, "Divert all power to shields. Keep her steady." But the device's erratic power drained the ship's systems faster than they could compensate. Lights dimmed. Consoles flickered. The threat wasn't just outside, it was inside. The communications officer's console beeped urgently again. Another message from the unknown ship. This time it wasn't a demand or a warning, it was a declaration. "You cannot win. The device belongs to us. Surrender now or be destroyed." A chill ran through the crew. Not from the cold of space, but from the realization that their greatest weapon had been turned into their greatest vulnerability. The captain's jaw tightened. He turned toward the engineering bay monitor. The chief engineer's face was grim, the glow from the device casting shadows across his tired eyes. "We're losing control," the engineer said quietly. "If this continues, the device could overload, destroying everything." A weight settled over the bridge, a crushing pressure that threatened to break their resolve. But the captain forced himself to stand taller. "We came here to face impossible odds," he said, voice rising with quiet fury. "We will not be broken by ghosts or tricks. Humanity fights with heart, with spirit, and with every ounce of strength we have." Outside, the alien armada faltered. Their own fears reflected back at them through the unraveling chaos. The mysterious ship's manipulation of the device was unraveling the battle plan they had spent years preparing. The captain's gaze met that of the young crew member again. He saw in her eyes something fierce, a spark that refused to die. "This isn't over," he promised. "Not by a long shot." The unknown ship pulsed once more, the space around it rippling with unseen power. The device inside the human vessel thrummed dangerously. The battle had escalated beyond all predictions. The stakes were higher than ever, and the question now was clear: who truly controlled the fate of humanity in this deadly game? And as the tension cracked like thunder across the void, the answer waited just beyond reach. The hum inside the human ship grew louder, so loud it felt like the entire vessel was alive, breathing, pulsing with raw power. The crew clung to their consoles as the device reached its breaking point, the energy rippling through every fiber of the ship's structure. The captain's eyes were sharp, burning with the fire of a man who refused to surrender. "Hold on," he commanded, voice steady but urgent. "We're going to finish this, one way or another." The chief engineer's hands flew over the controls, desperate to wrest back control from the unknown ship's insidious pulse. "I'm fighting it," he said, voice tight with strain. "But it's like nothing I've ever seen. This technology, it's alive or nearly so." Outside, the alien armada hesitated, their weapons still locked on but reluctant to fire. The unknown ship hovered just beyond the firing lines, a dark enigma in the void. The silence that stretched between the two forces was thick with uncertainty. Then the captain made his move. His hand reached for the device's core override, a risky last-ditch attempt to sever the control signal that was turning their weapon against them. "Brace for impact," he warned. The crew held their breath. The ship shook violently as the device surged, wild energy crackling through the hull. Lights flickered, and for a moment, it felt as though the entire ship might tear apart. Then silence. The humming stopped. The device's glow dimmed to a soft, steady pulse, their control restored. The captain exhaled slowly, a weight lifting from his chest. "We have control." Outside, the unknown ship reacted instantly, firing a massive energy blast aimed at the human vessel. But this time, the human ship's defenses held strong. The shields flared bright, absorbing the attack, and the alien armada braced for what came next. With the device now under human control, the ship unleashed a wave of energy unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was precise, devastating, targeting the alien fleet's command ships, crippling their coordination in an instant. Chaos erupted in the Armada. Ships that had seemed invincible now drifted helpless, their weapons offline. The mysterious third ship faltered, caught off guard by the sudden counterattack. The captain's voice rang out across the bridge, resolute. "This is humanity's fight. We are not prey." The human crew rallied, pushing their ship beyond its limits, striking at the Armada with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. But just as victory seemed within reach, a shockwave rippled through space. The unknown ship reactivated its pulse, but this time it wasn't aimed at the device, it was aimed directly at the human crew. The communications officer's console beeped frantically. "Captain, incoming message from the unknown ship." "It's a warning." The captain's jaw tightened. "Put it through." A distorted voice filled the bridge. "You think you have one. But you have only played into our plan. The device was never meant for war. It is a beacon." A hush fell over the crew. The captain's heart hammered in his chest as the message sank in. "A beacon?" the young crew member whispered. "Yes," the voice continued, cold and unyielding. "A signal to summon our kind. They are coming." Suddenly, distant lights flickered at the edge of the system. Dozens, hundreds of ships, emerging from the shadows. The Armada's retreat was cut off. The unknown ship vanished into the growing fleet, its true purpose revealed. The captain stood tall, eyes blazing with a new resolve. "We may have won this battle," he said quietly, "but the war is just beginning." As the new fleet closed in, the human ship readied itself once more, not just as a weapon, but as the spark of a fight that would decide the fate of humanity across the stars. And in that moment, beneath the cold light of distant suns, a single truth burned bright: humanity was never alone. But what came next was a question no one was ready to answer. The sudden appearance of the new fleet shattered the fragile silence in space, but the human ship didn't flinch. Instead, the crew tightened their grips, eyes sharp and steady. The captain stood at the front of the bridge, a calm force amidst the storm of uncertainty. This was no longer just a mission, it was the beginning of something far bigger, a test not only of technology but of human will. The alien Armada, once so confident and overwhelming, now found themselves cornered between humanity's fierce spirit and an unknown force that dwarfed even their combined might. For the first time, the warlords of the galaxy hesitated, their carefully crafted strategies crumbling under the weight of a conflict that was no longer theirs alone to command. Inside the ship, the crew exchanged glances, some filled with fear, others with determination. The young crew member who had once gripped her console in quiet desperation now stood taller, her eyes reflecting a fire ignited by hope and courage. She was no longer just a passenger in this fight, she was a symbol of the human spirit that refused to be crushed. The captain finally spoke, his voice steady and filled with quiet conviction. "We didn't come here to lose. We came to show that humanity stands united no matter the odds. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Behind him, the chief engineer monitored the device now pulsing with steady power, a beacon not just of weaponry but of resilience. It had been their gamble, their secret weapon, and though it nearly turned against them, it had ultimately reminded them what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The communications officer adjusted her console, picking up encrypted signals from Earth Command. Relief and pride poured through those messages. Millions watching, waiting, believing. The world was holding its breath, united in silent support. Suddenly, the unknown fleet's ships slowed their advance, forming an elegant formation in the distance. The mysterious vessel that had sparked so much chaos reappeared briefly, sending a new message, not a threat this time but an invitation. The captain raised an eyebrow, caught between suspicion and cautious hope. An invitation? The message was brief yet clear. We are not your enemies. We are watchers, guardians of the balance. The device you wield signals a new era. Join us or be crushed beneath the tide. Whispers rippled through the crew. The stakes had shifted again. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival was now a crossroads, an offer to step into a larger role in the galaxy, or to continue the struggle alone. The captain exchanged a long look with his crew before turning back to the communications console. His voice was calm but resolute. Tell them this: humanity does not kneel. We fight, we learn, and we grow. We will find our own way forward. A pause followed. The response was measured, almost respectful. Then prepare. The path will not be easy. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly, the silent witnesses to a new chapter in humanity's story. The Armada began to retreat, their confidence broken, while the watchers held their position, waiting, watching. The captain turned to his crew, his eyes softening. We've done more than survive today. We've sent a message. That message is clear: humanity is here to stay. The young crew member, her fingers still trembling from the intensity of the battle, let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What happens now? The captain smiled gently, a weary but hopeful smile. Now we rebuild. We prepare. Because this is only the beginning. In the quiet that followed, the ship's systems hummed steadily, the device now a symbol of hope rather than danger. The crew gathered in the mess hall, sharing stories and memories, laughter mixing with tears, a reminder of why they fought, who they fought for. Back on Earth, the broadcast of the lone human ship standing against an entire armada became a beacon of inspiration. People everywhere saw not just a ship, but the spirit of a species that refused to be crushed by fear or numbers. The captain's final message to Earth was simple yet powerful: we face the unknown not with dread but with courage. Because that is what it means to be human. And in that moment, under the endless stars, humanity's place in the cosmos was no longer a question. It was a promise to fight, to endure, and to rise. The galaxy had waited for humanity's answer. Humanity had given it. But even as the ship set course back to Earth, ready to face whatever future awaited, a quiet signal pulsed deep within the device, an echo of something far greater. Something still waiting in the shadows, watching and ready to test humanity's resolve once more. The fight was far from over. But for now, humanity had won a moment of peace. And in that peace lay the strength to face the stars with unyielding hope.